Ross, it has recently been reported that 50,000 homes have been lost from the Scottish private rented sector, the Scottish PRS. And that is a big number, and it's a pretty shocking headline, we thought. And we thought that because we feel that people like to rent, that they need to rent, but we thought, well, let's challenge ourselves and see if that's kind of true or not. So you looked at some stats with regarding all of this. So is the fact that 50,000 properties leaving the PRS good or bad?
Yeah, it sounds bad, doesn't it? It sounds like a lot of properties leaving the PRS. So initially, you think it's a bad thing. I suppose it was based on a survey that Sal had done, and they were asking people what the reasons were that landlords were leaving the sector. So the three main reasons were: number one, perceived hostility towards landlords from government/politicians.
Yeah.
Increased regulation in the sector, and concern about proposals to introduce rent controls were the three main reasons that the landlords are looking to sell. But we get this a lot. Every time we sort of maybe put up some social media advertising or posts, we often get people jumping on and adding a comment underneath some of the stuff that we put online to say that people shouldn't rent out their properties. They shouldn't be landlords. These properties should be for the people that for them to buy the property and live in the property and own it themselves. And there shouldn't be a rented sector. It certainly does feel like the government have that sort of vibe at the moment in the decisions they're making. So it's understanding that, the people are missing the point that it's not every single tenant that's in a property that's a frustrated home buyer that hasn't been able to secure a property. And there's been some analysis about, can people that are in property, can they afford to buy the property? And I think we had sort of discussed earlier before we started this about the average sale price for a two-bedroom property in Scotland, which was about 200,000.
And you're saying two-bedroom properties because the majority of the Scottish private rent, about half of the Scottish PRS are actually two-bedroom.
Yeah, I think so. I think there was some kind of survey out there that identified that half the properties in the PRS were two-bedroom properties. So that's the most common form of property in the PRS.
And the average price of a two-bedroom in Scotland, 200,000. And to get a property that's valued at 200,000, if you're looking to buy one, that is.
Yeah, you're probably looking at about a 10% mortgage. 10% deposit on a mortgage, so £20,000 to put down, and then if I think we calculated out that if mortgage rates were sitting around 5%, you're probably looking about maybe £1,000 a month in mortgage payments being paid on the mortgage, and that's not too far away from the average two-bedroom rental property in Scotland.
But 11, I've got here 1,126, so 1,126 per month being the average rent.
Yeah.
Two bed across the whole of Scotland. So
so it's pretty close. The main issue here for a lot of people that are in rented accommodation is the deposit, isn't it? It's pulling together the deposit, the £20,000. If that, I suppose, in average two-bedroom property in Edinburgh is going to be more than £200,000. So it's a higher deposit required. So that's the difficulty that most people have. So when a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, it's that property could be a home buyer," it's not everybody that can be in the position to afford that. Obviously, there are. So the issue there, if properties leave the sector, it probably impacts the less wealthy in society.
Exactly, and that's not what it's about. It's about helping everyone, giving everyone a chance to be able to live in a home in the way that kind of suits them. I was speaking to a lady who's got a property in Montrose, and it's a lower value property, and it's just a one bed. But she was speaking to the tenant about, and the tenant was quite keen to buy it, and the tenant was looking at ways of doing that, and then just couldn't. And so it's, thankfully they're coming to us, and we'll be able to deliver a fair sale price, I think, and it will stay in the Scottish private rented sector, and that tenant will stay in their home. But they did kind of want to buy it, but it wasn't possible. So there you've got people that maybe want to and can't. You've got people that actually don't want to, because as soon as you own your own home, you've got worries and concerns about, things breaking. And when you're a tenant, you don't really have to worry about that so much. You obviously hope things get fixed quickly, but it's not, you're not worried about the cost of it. So there's definite benefits to renting. So people that would say, oh, that's, the plus side is that's 50,000 new properties that have come onto the market that people can buy. It's not necessarily like that. I mean, I reckon a lot of those 50,000 two-bedroom flat, they're obviously not all two-bedroom flats, but let's say, lots of them are two-bedroom flats. They've probably been bought by property investors. So somebody's had to move out of their home, and then it's been bought and then coming back into the PRS, hopefully. But yeah, it's is 50,000 properties leaving the Scottish private rented sector good or bad? It was good that we challenged ourselves to find out if it's good or bad, but I think it's still bad.
Yeah, it's the type of person that's selling the properties as well. I think again, stats will state that traditionally, the most common landlord has one or two properties in their portfolio, and these are the people that are selling up and leaving the market, and they may be replaced by other more institutional type landlords with their large portfolios. So tenants are losing out on that personal one-on-one that they had with the landlord about, really that landlord only had one or two properties, really looking after the tenant, really maintaining it, and they get replaced by someone who's, you're just another fact and figure on a spreadsheet somewhere. Because there's a lot of chat about John Lewis or Lloyd's coming in, these big, massive institutional landlords, and I'm not sure that that's the type of landlord most tenants want.
I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I mean, I think hopefully these institutional landlords do, still get things fixed quickly and take pride in maybe between tenancies, spend money on the properties. Maybe actually better. But
what we know is that
I think it's nice. I think it's a shame. I like the quirkiness, or it's just a bit nicer if you to deal with it.
It'll be about the institutional landlords are a bit more focused on the budgets, etc. And then the smaller landlords are like, well, that's a nice thing to do for the tenant, so I'm going to do it, as opposed to, I'm going to buy a washing machine that's maybe more expensive than I should be buying because I'm looking after the tenant. Yeah. And then maybe the institutional landlords will buy a new washing machine, but it will be at a certain level to fit in with their costings.
Maybe. Certainly, it's a change. It's a much changed scene, isn't it? I mean, we're still thankfully selling lots of tenanted properties. We're just saying actually that the beginning of February has been really, really strong as we move into the sort of second half. But it's a different kind of buyer, isn't it? Yeah, it's just the people that are adding to their portfolio, and we find them to be good people, and hopefully continue to be good landlords.
But the best solution, just to finish it off, the best solution for us always, and you touched on it earlier, was when a landlord comes around to sell a property, you speak to the tenant. Are you in a position to buy this property? They live there, see it as their home, and it is the best solution if a tenant's in a position to buy the property. But as we alluded to earlier, it's not always the case. And
lastly, I know that this came, from Sal, and I'm sure that the stats are right, but it's so hard to know exactly what's happening to the size of the Scottish PRS, isn't it? I mean, it's like, with the landlord registration being a 3-year database or whatever you might describe it as, there's a lag, and people who are no longer landlords, they're not going to remove their name from the database, and it's just like it's hard to know. But it's good to get this extra information from Sal, and it's a good indication. But I think there's quite a lot of old serviced accommodation, Airbnb stuff that maybe hopefully came into the long-term buy-to-let market as well, or the Scottish private rented sector. But one day we'll find out the actual number, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a frustrating thing again about the data, is that the data's not there yet. The Scottish Government just bash on and make new legislation, new regulations based on, I don't know, sometimes it's, just pluck it out of the sky. Yeah.
Right, well, that was a good chat, hopefully informative for anybody that's watching or listening out there. If you've got any thoughts on it, then just get in contact to share those, and I'm sure everyone else will find it interesting as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks, bye.